Hello and welcome to Tech for Non-Techies, the only podcast that demystifies the fast-growing technology sector. I'm your host, Sophia, Chicago-based MBA and tech entrepreneur. My aim here is to give you the skills, knowledge and confidence to find opportunities in the tech sector, whether that's through founding a company, getting a dream job, or bringing a fresh perspective to your work. Hello, smart people. Today, I want to focus on some lessons from Ben Horowitz, specifically some lessons on product management from Ben Horowitz. But if you're thinking, we've had so many lessons and podcasts on product management, and actually I'm not going to be a product manager, so I don't want to listen to this, well, you might be mistaken. The advice that Ben Horowitz gives for product managers is relevant to people who want to hire product managers. So if you're working in innovation at a big company, or if you're a founder and you want to hire somebody who's going to help you get your vision come to life, then you need to understand what product managers do. And I also think that it is a key skill for investors to understand, because most of the time, if you're an investor, you are not speaking to the developers yourself. I don't know why, but developers tend to be pretty terrified of investors. So at least the ones that I've worked with, they really hate speaking to investors and they really don't like pitching. On the other hand, I'm a non-technical founder and I got to the point that I really love telling investors about my business because I'm so excited about its potential. I mean, if I wasn't, then I wouldn't be running it. We covered The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz in the Tech for Non-Techies book club. Now, this is not a normal book club because I don't do normal things. Usually in book clubs, people read the book and then discuss it together. In our book club, I read the books, I then summarize the key points, and then I share them with people, and then we discuss them. The reason why I do this is I know how difficult it is to fit in all the books and all the reading that actually we all want to do. And also, I'm curating the books that are genuinely useful and those that are not. There's a lot of tech and innovation literature, which is more about grandiose egos sharing vacuous concepts rather than information that you can actually use today. And I have been called a painfully practical person, but I think it's a good thing. I like books on tech and innovation and business that are actually going to tell me what to do and are not just going to be big generalities. The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz is definitely a useful book. This book has been recommended by so many of my interesting friends that I would say, in general, if you want to have an interesting, successful career in business, it's a good book to read. Yes, it definitely focuses on technology. And I mean, honestly, if you're listening to Tech for Non-Techies, you're probably interested in technology, right? It's a generally useful book for people who want to achieve interesting things. Because if you want to achieve interesting things, then it ain't going to be easy. I mean, it hasn't been for me. I don't know, maybe it's easy for somebody. But I've never heard of that person. All right, so who is Ben Horowitz and why do we care? So Ben Horowitz is now the co-founder of one of the leading venture capital firms called Andreessen Horowitz. It is now often referred to as A16Z, or if you're American, A16Z. Before becoming a successful venture capitalist, he was a co-founder and CEO of a company called Opsware. So a lot of the lessons that Ben shares in his book are the lessons that he's learned from Opsware. Opsware was eventually acquired by Hewlett-Packard for $1.6 billion in 2007. But it was definitely not an easy story. There were several times when the company was very close to bankruptcy. There were times when they had to fire hundreds of people. And there were times when Ben would read articles about him, which basically called him an idiot. So this is why I think it's such a useful book for somebody who's trying to achieve something. Because it is inevitable that you'll have failures and then you might be looking at everybody else thinking, oh my God, everybody else has it together. And Ben Horowitz shows you that they don't. And it's fine. You can get through it anyway. And he has some useful tips. There are so many gems in the book that I am not going to go through the entire thing. Otherwise, we would be here forever and it would be an audiobook. So I'm just going to focus on one particular chapter, which I think is super useful. And it's literally called Good Product Manager versus Bad Product Manager. Really simple. I think it's such a relevant book for non-techies who want to get into tech or want to build tech products, because Ben's advice is literally to go against our original instinct. So, what does that actually mean? Ben Horowitz says that good product managers know the market, the product, and the competition. That basically means that you do your market research, you understand the product that your colleagues are building, the product that you're in charge of, and you also understand how users of that product or potential users of that product are meeting that particular need. So beware that competition isn't just another app that does the same thing but maybe at a lower price, or another app that does the same thing in a different geography. No, it is how your target user is meeting that particular need. So for example, when we're thinking of Uber, Uber's competitor might not necessarily be Lyft. Uber's competitor could be your feet. You could take an Uber or you could walk. Another thing that Ben Horowitz says good product managers do is that they take full responsibility for the success of the product. It means that the product manager is like the conductor of an orchestra. So let's think about a conductor of an orchestra. A conductor of an orchestra does not know how to play every single instrument, or they don't know how to play it to the level of all the people in the orchestra. Often they haven't written the music. If it's classical music, they wouldn't have written the music. But yet the conductor of the orchestra is responsible for getting the best out of all of those players, making sure that they are playing the same music and they're playing the music at the same time, and that the result is pleasing to the audience. If the harpist or the violinist decides that they're not going to turn up, it's the conductor who is going to get the ultimate blame. If the person playing the cello messes up, the audience is going to look to the conductor and wonder what's going on. Now, is that fair? I don't know, but unfortunately it's true. It's exactly the same thing with product management. So as a product manager, and if you've been listening for a while, you will know that if you're a non-technical founder, you're most likely to be the product manager at your company as well. As a product manager, you're working with developers and you either don't know how to code or you're definitely not as good as them. You're also working with user experience designers. You're probably working with some analysts, and there's going to be some kind of marketing specialist involved as well. So marketing or community management. So these are all different people with different personality types. Usually the person who is doing the marketing is going to be a different personality type to the person who's writing the code. And they all have conflicting ideas about how to reach the same goal. So as a product manager, you have to work with all of these different people. But, and this is where the responsibility comes in, if something goes wrong on the marketing side and your product doesn't reach enough people for you to do product testing, you can't then go to your investors, or if you're in a big company, you can't go to your bosses and say, oh look, this person messed up. No, as the product manager, if they messed up, it is ultimately your responsibility. Equally, if there's an issue with engineering, and let me tell you, there's always an issue with engineering. It always takes longer than you thought you'd take, and it's always more expensive. So if there is a problem on the engineering side and you have to write your investor report, or you have to go to your bosses and explain what's going on, the person who's going to be doing the explaining is going to be you. A good product manager understands that this is the situation, and so they're not surprised by the weight of the responsibility on their shoulders. In contrast, Ben Horowitz says that a bad product manager has lots of excuses. Now, what does that mean? It means that, imagine you're a product manager and you're talking to your boss, or you're a non-technical founder and you have to write your investor report. In that investor report, you are going to be writing things like, our marketing manager made this mistake, or our marketing manager underestimated the user acquisition cost, therefore we were unable to test the product properly. It's very easy to blame it on other people because frankly, things do go wrong. So if you're a good product manager, not only do you take responsibility, but also you have to manage the expectations of the people that you're working with. Because if you're taking full responsibility, but you're not managing expectations, that means you might end up getting blamed by investors who don't have realistic expectations because they haven't listened to this podcast and they don't understand just how many moving parts there are in making a product. So take responsibility, don't have excuses, but educate the people that you are reporting to about the many moving parts so then you can manage their expectations professionally. Another point that I really like in the good product manager versus bad product manager section of Ben Horowitz's book is that he says that product managers are the marketing counterparts to the engineering managers. So on a tech team, you will often have a technical lead and you might be the non-technical founder / product manager, or you might just be the product manager. And if you've taken my non-technical founders course, you will remember that I talk about the yin and yang of companies. Basically, it means that you always need somebody to make the product and you need somebody to sell the product. If you have somebody who only makes the product and has no idea how to sell it, that's not going to be much of a business. Equally, if you're only good at selling, but your product is rubbish or you don't know how to make the product or how to work with people who make the product, also you're not going to get very far. So you need this yin and yang. And in the product management and tech lead situation, you have the product managers working on the business side of things and co-parenting the product with the tech lead. Product managers are the people who bring in the user considerations and also the business considerations. Because as I've learned working with engineers, unless you're building DeepMind and building some kind of very super complicated deep tech, then most technology can be built. It just takes some time and some money. The problem usually happens when people plow money into making the product and into making the technology without verifying the commercial success of the product. That basically means, is this a big enough need for people to pay money for it? If it's not, even if it is a need and even if the product is good, it's not going to be a commercial success. All right, final point, and I think the most important, saving the best till last. Ben Horowitz says that good product managers feel good when they figure out the what. Bad product managers feel good when they figure out the how. What does that mean? Figuring out the what is figuring out what problem the product is solving for the user. Once you figure out the user's problem, then not only can you start building interesting products, you can also direct the marketing campaigns around that, and also you can work out what your monetization strategy is going to be. Bad product managers feel good when they figure out the how. That means how to build the product. And this is something that I've seen non-technical founders get really hung up about. And also, I confess, I've been really hung up about this. Basically, what it means is that instead of focusing on the what, as in who is the user, what problems do they have, how are they solving that problem right now? In Uber's case, not only are they looking at taxis, they're also looking at how people actually get around. Instead of focusing on the user need and what the user is doing to fulfill that need, us non-technical people, we tend to get so freaked out by the fact that we're non-technical and by the fact that we're trying to build something in technology that what we then do is think, okay, let me just learn everything about technology so then I can build this product. Essentially, that's overcompensating, and that's not necessary. It's not our fault though. I think there's quite a lot of Silicon Valley folklore that says if you want to build tech products, you have to learn to code. If you're a non-technical founder and you don't have a technical co-founder, you're not going to do very well, or investors are not going to fund you. That is definitely there. And some investors do definitely believe that, but not all investors believe that. And there are many examples of investors, for example, on this podcast, who don't believe that. And there are many successful non-technical founders who have succeeded despite the fact, or maybe even because of the fact, that they're non-technical founders. It is this desire to overcompensate for what we don't know that then drives us to do things that are really against the grain for us. So for example, I've seen a lot of people signing up to full-time, really intense coding courses or data science courses just because they want to build an app to solve a particular problem. If they want to learn to code and if they want to transition career and they want to become a data scientist, that's fantastic. Good luck to them. But if what they want to do is build a solution to a problem that they know about and they want that to be a tech solution, taking a 6-month-long coding course is not going to be the answer. In many cases, that's a waste of time and money and stress. So if you're tempted to do that and what you actually want to do is be a product manager or a non-technical founder, literally just read Ben Horowitz's book and remember that one of the scions of Silicon Valley says that it is bad product managers who focus on the how. How do we build the thing? What infrastructure? Which language? That is not what a product manager does. That is the engineer's job. And so remember, when we're talking about good product managers, Ben Horowitz says that good product managers are marketing counterparts to the engineering manager. Good product managers need to bring the business perspective and they need to bring the user perspective. And they need to bring both of those perspectives to the engineering manager who can then work on the tech side. Don't be tempted to do all of the jobs. Nobody can do all of them well. So focus on your zone of excellence, focus on the users and focus on the business. And then learn to work with people who build tech products. And that means learn to work with engineers, learn to work with analysts, learn to work with data scientists, and then you can all function in your zone of excellence and build something interesting together. As I said, this is literally just one of the sections of this excellent book. I highly recommend that you get it if you are an ambitious person who wants to get into tech. And basically, that describes my listeners. The link to the book is in the show notes. If you join the Tech for Non-Techies book club, you will be able to see the entire recording of the session we had on the hard thing about hard things. And you'll also be able to see masterclasses on some of the Bibles in the tech world. So for example, we've got a session on 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. We've got a session on Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. And one of my favorites is The House That Jack Ma Built, which is the fascinating story of Alibaba, which goes through the digitalization of China and the growth of this fascinating company by this incredible man. Our most recent book was The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman. And coming up in January, we are covering The Startup of You by Reid Hoffman. In The Startup of You, Reid Hoffman basically says that we should think of ourselves as a startup. So literally think of your career as a startup. And considering that Reid Hoffman is the co-founder of LinkedIn and one of the top venture investors in Silicon Valley, he knows one or two things about startups. And, from LinkedIn, he knows one or two things about careers. So that live session is coming up at the end of January. And if you join us at Tech for Non-Techies as a member, you'll be able to participate in that session, which I think is just going to set you up for January in the best way possible. So check out our membership. Tech for Non-Techies members get a live masterclass on an aspect of technology or the tech business every Tuesday. We also have regular member meetups. You get lots of learning notes and a mini course on how to go from idea to live product. On that note, thank you very much for listening. Have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you soon.